Shadeur Sanders and Dillon Gabriel both got drafted to the Browns in the later round of the NFL draft. But what does this mean for either of them? So I wanted to make this video on Thursday night, but obviously the story wasn't over then. And then I wanted to make this video on Friday night, and the story wasn't over then. So I have to make it midday, mid-morning on Saturday when Shadeur Sanders finally gets drafted in the 5th round to the Browns. And I think that this is obviously a unique situation with it being Shadeur, with it being Deion Sanders' son, with coming from Colorado, all the things that come around with being Shadeur Sanders. But I think that this is something that we will see a little bit more of as we go forward, where a super highly touted player might not get drafted as high, especially quarterbacks, might not get drafted as high or might drop quite a bit based on things that are not on the field. But before we get too far into it, make sure that you like and subscribe. We're trying to get as many college football videos out as we can before the season starts, so make sure you're along for the ride. And obviously this has happened in NFL drafts for a long time, but one of the biggest thing about college football right now is NIL and the transfer portal, right? That is like what everyone talks about. And we've seen so many changes in college football itself and really the structure of college football over the last 2 years with NIL and all this kind of stuff that's going on. And we have yet to really see that trickle into the NFL draft. Last year we had all the quarterbacks being taken. It was pretty normal NFL draft. This is the first time we've seen a quarterback drop this far. And again, there are a lot of reasons why Shadeur Sanders dropped. I thought about two quarterbacks really came to mind with this. One of them is Troy Smith, who was a Ohio State quarterback in the mid-2000s, won the Heisman Trophy in 2006, I believe, 2006 or 2007, and then went into the NFL draft and got drafted in the 7th round. And it wasn't even surprising he got drafted in the 7th round. But this is the best player in college football as a quarterback, doesn't even get a look until the 7th round, and then really doesn't ever play that much in the NFL. And that was just because his game worked really, 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 really well for college. I think he won a national championship. He obviously won the Heisman Trophy. All that. But it doesn't translate to the NFL that well. And that's a different time where college football was a little bit further away from where the NFL is. I think it's getting closer together now, where if you're good in college, for the most part, you will be probably pretty good in the NFL. But obviously, it's a case-by-case basis. So I think that's part of what is going on with Shadeur, right? Like, he did really well in college. He threw for a lot of yards, a lot of touchdowns, all that kind of stuff. But if you listen to like the pre-draft process, the problems with him is that it's either something right along the lines or it's a home run. It's not the intermediate. And the NFL right now, the offense is kind of in the post-Sean McVay era, or in the Sean McVay era, I should say. Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan era. Run the ball, play action, intermediate passes. Intermediate passes is what they're looking for in the NFL, for the most part. The Rams, the Niners, the Vikings, the teams that have the best offenses, even maybe not the Eagles as much, but obviously the Eagles have something else, which is the best offensive line. But the great passing offenses in the NFL are intermediate passing offenses. Even the Chiefs, their bread and butter is Travis Kelce in the middle of the field. And Shadeur doesn't really have that in his game. So that's, X's and O's reason why maybe he wouldn't have been one of those top picks. But maybe just skill-wise, he would have been end of the 1st round, 2nd round pick in that range with Jackson Dart and Tyler Shutt. That's where people were putting him scouting-wise. But the second quarterback that I thought about, and I'm going to leave everything else out of it, is Colin Kaepernick. We all know what happened. We all know the story of Colin Kaepernick. Colin Kaepernick was, at the time when he started taking a knee, a fringe NFL starter. He was coming to the last year of his contract with the 49ers. He probably was going to get signed as maybe, kind of a bridge starter after that season. But then he started bringing a lot more attention to himself for off-the-field things. Whatever you think of it, that doesn't matter. He started bringing a lot more attention to himself for off-the-field things. Things that didn't have anything to do with his play. That's Shadeur Sanders as well, right? Shadeur Sanders maybe came in and fought for a starting quarterback job. He might still have a chance to do that with the Browns. But more than likely than not, he would have at least sat for half the season, right? He's not a you got to get him on the field kind of player. And if that player is more popular than your starting quarterback, as soon as your starting quarterback starts having any mistakes, you're going to have people. It's the same reason they didn't bring back Flacco last year to the Browns, is he didn't want, as soon as Deshaun Watson started fucking up, people started chanting for Flacco, who brought him to the playoffs the year before. That's kind of the thing with Shadeur. You don't want him behind whatever gap starter or whatever you have, and then they start fucking up, which they will, because they're not top-level NFL starting quarterback, as their contract would say. They start chanting for Shadeur Sanders. He comes in, and he sucks. So you're putting yourself at odds with your fans if you do draft him in a lot of these situations. That is like the uniqueness to Shadeur. But I think that, as I was alluding to, these changes in college football will allow this to happen more, because with NIL, with these guys getting paid for being in commercials and all this kind of stuff, they're becoming bigger stars in college football, more national stars, I should say, not so much just a star in this market because they've been here for 4 years or whatever. They're becoming national stars because they play for multiple teams. The college football playoff is bigger. We see more of these national games. We see Shadeur Sanders and KFC commercials, all this kind of stuff, right? There are going to be these players that have attention to them that might not be the star in the NFL that they were in college football. But they still have the name of the star they were in college football. But their talent might not bring them to that in the NFL. And I think that this problem where we see these quarterbacks that we see do well in college, that we see are very popular in college, that make a lot of money in college, aren't going to be highly drafted because they won't live up to that in the NFL. And if they don't live up to that in the NFL, you're putting yourself, and you spend a high draft pick on them, you're putting yourself at odds with your fans. Now, the best quarterbacks are still going to get drafted highly, but I think that you will see more second-round quarterbacks, third-round quarterbacks, fourth-round quarterbacks be the ones that aren't the biggest stars. And these big stars that would maybe be in those fringe categories will drop further in the draft because teams won't want to have that issue with their fans. They won't want to put themselves in that problem, in that area where they could have a problem. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I think that this is, obviously a unique situation with Shadeur, but I do think that the NIL is going to make changes to the NFL draft. I think it's not just that they're going to be stars. We see guys, Shadeur and Deion Sanders were kind of acting like arrogant assholes going into the draft. And that doesn't play well. Some guy tweeted like, I think RJ Young tweeted, Joe Burrow doesn't get in trouble for being arrogant. Aaron Rodgers doesn't get in trouble for being arrogant. Tom Brady doesn't get in trouble for being arrogant. First off, Shadeur Sanders is not any of those guys. Secondly, Aaron Rodgers, yes, he does. He was starting to get it when he started to leave Green Bay, all that kind of stuff. And as he's failed with the Jets, people have been like, fuck this guy. That's why he hasn't signed with the Steelers yet, because, yeah, he can say whatever he wants about he's got problems in his personal life or all that. It's because they're not going to give him the money that he thinks he should get, partly because they're like, fuck this guy, right? And their fans have been like, this guy's a dick. Tom Brady, especially in Tampa Bay, people were like, this guy's a fucking dick. Fuck this guy. Even though he's the greatest quarterback of all time, he can be that. Teams will still sign him because of all the other things he brings, and he wins. But he was a dick, and he is a dick. So it's not a race thing, RJ Young. It is, if you're going to act like an asshole, you better be able to back it up. We saw this multiple times in this spring transfer portal. It burst onto the scene with Nico, thinking he was worth more than he's worth, acting like an asshole to get it, and he got shipped back to UCLA. that is a step down from Tennessee for sure. We saw this with the Syracuse wide receiver, thinking that he owned the fucking team. And his coach let him know, no, you don't. There's no more money for you. We can find more. It's not the money that they sent him away for. It's because he's acting like an asshole. And we're going to see more of that because players have more power in college now. And, when you have a lot of power and you're playing at, no matter, even if it's Tennessee, Syracuse, Washington State, it's all smaller than an NFL team. And you're probably the best player in your team. The way you wield that will show who you will be in the NFL. And that's more important, I think, than talent. I think that talent, if you're absolutely the best, most talented player, act however you want to act. But if you're not, you can't get away with it. And that's what we're seeing with the NFL. That's what we're seeing with the spring transfer portal. And maybe it's a good thing. But it's going to take some time to get used to. And Shadeur Sanders and Nico Iamaleava are two sides of the same sword. We'll see what happens next year. Thanks for watching that video. Make sure that you like and subscribe. And if you made it this far, leave a comment on the video below. If you'd like to watch more of my videos, I do have those for you. I got my video about Texas Tech right here. You can go ahead and check that one out. Let you know what I think about what they could do next season. Up here, I've got my video about Illinois, which nobody watched. It's a good video, though, very similar to the Texas Tech one. So if you like the Texas Tech one, check out the Illinois one. Let me know what you think. Other than that, I got my subscribe link on this side, and we'll catch you next time. See ya!